Gay Muslim defies bullies to marry. Because that's all it is. Just a little bit of bullying, but otherwise everything's just going to be fine. Absolutely fine for the gay Muslims. A gay Muslim who tried to kill himself after being bullied because of his sexuality has married his partner in what he believes to be the first same-sex wedding involving a Muslim in Britain. Fantastic. I hope it goes great for them. I'm all for gay marriage. I'm all for gay Muslim marriage. I'm all for people doing whatever the fuck they like as long as they're not hurting someone else. So this to me is absolutely great. I get the feeling there are probably some people to whom this is not absolutely great. And in fact, they might find themselves so irrationally angry by the fact this has happened that they might try and do something about it. I suspect the word honour is probably going to be thrown around here at some point as well. So Jahed Choudhury, who's from a Bangladeshi family, has said his mother has always supported him, but other relatives thought his sexuality was just a phase and treated him like the black sheep. That's racist. Mr. Choudhury had been on a pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia, been on the Hajj, and Bangladesh in an attempt to change his sexuality after he was spat on and called a pig. He should have hit a Mike Pence, really, shouldn't he? He married Sean Rogan, 19, who is not a Muslim, in a civil ceremony in Warsaw last month. The pair met after he had tried to take his own life. Despite the fact that tens of thousands of same-sex marriages have been conducted since they were legalized in 2014, he believes that he is the first Muslim gay to get married, and he hasn't managed to find another gay Muslim who's done the same. But this is, of course, the concerning bit. I want to say to all the people going through the same thing that it's okay. We're going to show the whole world that you can be gay and Muslim. It's not the whole world you have to persuade. It's just the Muslims. He said his husband was considering his request to convert, but they would struggle to find a mosque willing to help. He added that they had received death threats. People telling me they're going to kill me and that I should never have been born, but we are so happy we're able to just brush them off. Because nothing else will happen, will it? So it's interesting how this is titled Gay Muslim Defies Bullies to Marry. And if you go back to the Google cache of the original title of this article, it was Gay Muslim Marries Partner in Spite of Death Threats, which I think is rather more powerful and more accurate as to what has happened. These people are not simply trying to bully him, they are trying to threaten him to make him stop being gay, because this is haram in Islam, which everyone knows. And interestingly, you've got an article on The Independent that's written a day ago. After one of Britain's first gay Muslim marriages, let me tell you what it's actually like to be a gay Muslim. While many practicing Muslims reject homosexuality, in fact most do, in fact we can just pull up the Pew data and see how many Muslims actually find homosexual behaviour to be immoral. And the answer is around 88% of Muslims worldwide. I have previously calculated this. But yeah, I mean, look at this numbers. Morally wrong, 83, 83, 73, 92, 92, 94, 95, 99 in Thailand, 97 in Lebanon. And if you go to somewhere that's more westernized, I suppose, you could say Egypt, maybe? They've got quite a lot of Western influence, 94. Iraq is only 77, which is shockingly low. Bangladesh at 67, that's really low. But it's still 2/3 of people think that being homosexual is morally wrong. Highly conservative, highly religious states where they are just directly opposed to homosexuality. But anyway, returning to our gay Muslim marriages and what it's like to actually be gay and Muslim. In Islamic teachings, I was taught from a young age to constantly chart all my sins, and I was forced to imagine myself in pits of hell for all my transgressions. Homosexual desire was, of course, a one-way express ticket to fiery torture. Shock. And if I, like Choudhury, ceremonially married a man, would not see my family there. Muslim social conduct would stop most of them from coming. When my parents discovered I was gay, through pornography no less, they were distraught, our relationship fell apart, and they did everything they could to stop it. This included throwing away all of my colourful clothes, which I was very emotionally attached to. But this felt much more to do with their cultural association with Islam, with their fear of what relatives would think, rather than anything to do with Islamic scripture. Well, yes, in a more direct sense it probably was to do with what other people would think, but what they think is inspired directly by Islamic scripture. I mean, the Quran is actually quite light on this, when they say, basically they make reference to the people of Lot, which would be the Sodomites, getting destroyed in a fiery inferno by God. But the hadiths are far more clear. I should have got the one up to give you the quote, but they just say they have to be killed. There's no It's no open to interpretation. This is not acceptable within the canonical text of Islam. Cut and dried. Which is why so many Muslims will say things like, many argue that to be gay and Muslim is an utter irreconcilability. No Muslim is gay, was a remark I saw on Twitter today. When one learns that the Muslim Council of Britain opposed same-sex marriage in 2013, we understand how these views are generated. Yeah, from the scripture. Where do you think they're getting it from? Where are they supposed to be pulling this from, if not the texts that are meant to be representative of Muhammad's life and deeds and words? However, homosexuality as a taboo among families of faith is hardly specific to Islam. Yeah, but that's not the question. This isn't a Christian getting married, it's not a Mormon, it's not a Buddhist, it's not a Taoist, it's not any other faith. We're talking about Islam. And we can chart exactly why Muslims don't like homosexuality. We know exactly why. It comes directly from the scripture. It's enforced by the imams. It's widely accepted. Why are you even bringing up another religion? Your religion is the one we have to talk about right now. But here comes the postmodernism. While many practicing Muslims reject homosexuality, the intersection of queer identity and faith is a reality for many of us. An irreconcilable reality. One that you just have to live in cognitive dissonance over, I imagine. Because what are you going to do? Find a hadith or a quote from the Quran that says that it's okay to take a dick up the arse? No, you're fucking not. I now characterize myself as an agnostic Muslim, so you're not a Muslim. How can you be a Muslim if you don't believe in God? Are you a cultural Muslim? Is that what you're saying? And even then, if you're gay, it doesn't seem very culturally Muslim to be gay. So I don't follow scriptural practice, but in many facets of my life, whether in my drag family, my spiritual connection to the world, or just instilled in moral values, I think I hold some deep Islamic principles, even a connection to Allah. And this connection sits separate to the Muslim communities that I'm no longer accepted in. I guess if you want to believe in God and Allah and Muhammad is his prophet and believe in the last day, okay, maybe you can call yourself a Muslim, but you're going to be considered a really, really bad Muslim. And people are just going to tell you you're going to go to hell. Because in the internal logic of Islam, you are going to go to hell. This is, you know that. You know, this is unfortunately the choice that you have. To either not be a Muslim or accept that if you're going to be a gay Muslim, the scriptures themselves and all of Islamic thought is just going to tell you, right, you're going to hell. In fact, it would be better for people to kill you now. It would be compassionate. Gowri, who identifies as pansexual, agender and Muslim, but presumably not to her Muslim family. What am I saying? Zia's Muslim family, talks to me about their perspective as a queer British Muslim. They tell me Islam can be explored through a variety of perspectives, lenses, if you will, explaining that the Islamic history in Arab regions shows clearly that Muslims were among the most progressive people in terms of gender justice, racial equality, class politics and law. Well, to be fair, racial equality, you could make the argument. I mean, Muhammad's last sermon, he does say that no race is better than another, and Islam doesn't generally divide the world up by races, although the Salafis, the Wahhabis specifically, actually do. They're certainly Arab supremacists. But to say gender justice and class politics and law? Come on. Come on. I mean, they make subclasses, castes, out of other religions that Islam dominates, and women are deliberately locked into a second-class citizen role. There's no getting around it. I mean, this is just nonsense. And that's coming from the Quran as well on the gender justice aspect. That's not, I mean, it's worse than the Hadiths, obviously, but in the Quran it's still not kind, and it's still not equal. But anyway, Muslim women were among the first in the world to vote. Weren't they? Kind of last in the world to vote as well, if you look at the state of the Arab world at the moment, aren't they? Some of them can't even drive or leave their countries. And they're still considered the property of their husbands. But anyway, it is this facet of Islam that Umber has an alliance with, and as such, being Muslims is a progressive part of their character. Yeah, but you'll notice how that is absolutely not reflected across the Islamic world. Because this is actually an interpretation of Islam that is done in a similar way as the jihadis. It's an interpretation of Islam that cherry-picks certain things that fit a specific narrative and just ignores the other things. I mean, there are other aspects to Islam that these people are deliberately leaving out, obviously, And it's the same with the jihadis. There are other aspects of Islam that they are leaving out. Now, whether you consider these valid interpretations or not is a long, complex conversation, and I'm not going to go through it now, but the point is, these are specific interpretations that very few Muslims actually agree with, on either side. Very few Muslims are actually in agreement with the sort of jihadi ideology. Very few Muslims are in agreement with the progressive ideology. Most of them are quite mainstream, conservative, right-wing religious bigots, alright? If you would describe them in the same way you would describe Christian conservatives in the US, they are the really quite, hardcore Republican evangelical sorts. That's most of the Islamic world. Just so the progressives, just so you know, alright? They're generally not that forward-thinking or progressive. Poet and journalist, I'm not going to try and pronounce that, who identifies as bisexual and Muslim, explains how media representation erases the complexity of our identity. It's because you're such a small percentage of the Muslim ummah. My voice, my identity is one that is erased and rewritten on a daily basis, whitewashed through generous doses of stereotyping and bigotry. I want people to scream, people are not only what you imagine them to be. Okay, I don't care what you are, they care what you are, and they don't like what you are. I'm not meaning to pretend that being queer and Muslim is an easy marriage. It probably ain't going to be an easy marriage, but not because of their husband, not because they're queer, and probably not even because they are Muslim. Well, I mean, it will be because they're Muslim, but it won't be them. Homosexuality is criminalized in many Muslim nations because Islam's just so compatible with homosexuality. And they are home to some devastating LGBTQI+, don't forget the P. And they're home to some devastating LGBTQI+ hate crimes. Yeah, it's not considered a crime. The person who's gay is the one committing the crime. We need to remember that religion is not a cultural model. It is a personal, individual relationship with God that can be practiced outside socio-cultural norms. Right, okay, this is a really, really deep statement that I don't want to have to get into. But basically, they're wrong. When you have a religion where everyone has to practice the same, for example, like gender segregation, you need that enforced. Other people in the community then have to enforce that. Because otherwise you're going to get fraternization between men and women. That's going to lead to premarital sex, which is considered absolutely immoral by almost every Muslim on earth. So you need the society to enforce that. And unfortunately, that means that it's not just a personal individual relationship with God. It means that the Muslim community feels the need to uphold the standards of their community, as awful as I find those standards. And that's why this person's probably in a lot of trouble. As we have become more celebratory of sexual and gender autonomy in Western faiths, we need to do the same for Muslims, many of whom identify as queer and have a spiritual relationship with Allah, regardless of cultural conflicts, or religious doctrine. I mean, Allah is like, no, you can't be gay. I told Muhammad to tell you, you can't put your dick in a man's arsehole. That's wrong. It has to be in a woman, and it can't even be in her arsehole either. It's double wrong, probably. And so I commend Choudhury and his partner Sean Rogan for demonstrating that the different facets of their identities are not irreconcilable. They actually are. They're just living in cognitive dissonance. I mean, there's nothing in the Quran that sanctions, or in the Hadith, that sanctions homosexuality. There's direct condemnation and death sentences for it, which is why it's illegal and also can be punishable by death in, like, 10, 12 Muslim countries. But I hope this persuades non-Muslims and Muslims everywhere that being a queer person of faith is a happy possibility. Oh, I'm sure you can be queer people of faith, just not Islam. You can't be a real Muslim and be gay, according to most Muslims. So I decided to go on Twitter and ask my favourite Imam of Peace, Imam Tawhidi, which religion did he think was eventually going to kill this man? Because vigilante attacks in the name of Islam are a thing. And they really happen. He, of course, thought it was going to be Buddhism, and I think he's right. I think it's undoubtedly going to be the Buddhists. I mean, they need to be stopped, basically. But yeah, we all know the score. We all know. And the Dutch know as well, apparently. This was back in 2016, but there was a great amount of fury as a watchdog said it was okay to send gay people death threats, but only if you're a Muslim. In a shocking move, the taxpayer-funded hotline said it would not pursue a criminal complaint over horrific messages from radical Islamists because the Quran says gay people can be killed. The disgraceful stance came to light when a member of the public complained about death threats posted to an online forum which called for homosexuals to be burned, decapitated and slaughtered. It's not like they're even going to kill them nicely either. It's not a no lethal injection here. Dutch MPs today reacted with horror to the revelations, demanding an immediate inquiry into the remarks and calling for the hotline to be stripped of public funding. Well, I should fucking hope so. But the problem is, that's not going to get rid of all the Islamists who want to kill the gays. According to Dutch media advisors from the Anti-Discrimination Bureau Mind, said that while homophobic abuse was usually a crime, it was justifiable if you were Muslim due to laws on freedom of religious expression. It is part of their religious expression to threaten to kill gay people, according to this Anti-Discrimination Bureau. Okay. And if they then murder the homosexuals, is that also their freedom of religious expression? Do you see how this might be a problem? And again, I just want to stress this is not all Muslims, not even most Muslims. It is a minority of Muslims who will do things like this. Most will simply disapprove and carry on with their lives. But there will always be this fringe minority who will take action. They will see it as a religious duty to be a vigilante in the cause of Islam. They said, the remarks must be seen in the context of religious beliefs in Islam, which juridially takes away the insulting character. I don't care. I'm not a Muslim, and I don't want to live by Islamic laws, and they have to live by our laws. So I don't give a damn. If they have a problem in their religion with homosexuals, that's not my problem, that's their problem. And they can just fucking deal with it, can't they? They can find some way of squaring that circle. It's not my problem. They conclude that the remarks were made in the context of a public debate about how to interpret the Quran, and added some Muslims understand from the Quran that gays should be killed. Oh, and it's okay for them to send threats then. Well, they just understand that gays should be killed. Why? It says in a 1,400-year-old book that gays should be killed. Oh, well, I mean, if it says in an ancient dusty tome, then it must be true. God must have said it. And they went on, in the context of religious expression, it exists in the Netherlands that there is a large degree of freedom of expression. Really? That free, is it? In addition, the expressions are used in the context of the public debate on how to interpret the Quran, which also removes the offending character. That doesn't change the death threats, though. The death threats have been made in the comment section for an article about a Dutch-Moroccan gay society, which had been posted on an online platform for Holland's large Moroccan community. I tell you what, there are none more oppressed than ex-Muslims, or gay Muslims, or Muslims who are non-orthodox. They get a hell of a time in their communities. I've been talking to some at the meetup, and these poor fucking guys are just, and the thing is, they know, the Muslims in these communities know that these people are apostates, and they treat them as such. I mean, they literally like attacking them, force them to fight, force them to run away, and they would do terrible things. I'm not kidding. And again, it's not all of them, but it's the sort of young men who do this. Gives them an excuse.